Okay, we're recording. Welcome back to the Hammer Time Rackets podcast. It is my great pleasure today to have with me former world champion and Rackets legend, Harry Foster. Welcome, Harry.
Thank you. Very kind introduction.
Of course. So we've never spoken before up until 5 minutes ago. So it's good to be seeing you. I know for me, having picked up the game like in 2015 and having watched a little bit before that, yours was a name that I've obviously always been aware of, seen all your accomplishments. I think I actually might have been there for the first or the New York leg of your challenge with James back in 2008. But other than that, we haven't come across each other. So it's good to have you here. So what I like to typically do is talk about how you got into the game, what the process for, the beginning of your career all the way through to becoming world champion. I know you went to Harrow, so I wanted to know, do you remember the first time you got on court and what was sort of the integration into the game of rackets for you like?
Yeah, sure. Actually, my first sort of introduction to the game was when I was at my prep school, and I used to play squash there and was adequate. And I said to the coach, when I go to Harrow, I'm going to really work hard and get really good at squash. And he was like, "Don't bother." He said, "It's a terrible game. It's a much better game called rackets." He said, "You want to play that?" He said, "Just make sure you get down to the rackets court in the first week." And that's what I did. And he was very right. I don't think I played squash at Harrow at all.
Well,
okay.
lucky for the game that you chose rackets and you listened to him. Was John Eaton your coach there?
No. So the first 3 years I think I was there, or even maybe the whole time I was there. I can't remember. Roger Crosby.
Okay.
Was there, who very famous sort of family. Who his father was the rackets pro at Harrow forever, and then Roger took over, and then Roger's son Martin is the racket professional at Charterhouse. So very famous racketing family, and Roger was old by the time I got there, but unbelievably enthusiastic about the game and loved it, even though he'd been doing that job for 40 years.
Yeah. And were there like a number of other players that were, I guess, a similar or like a top level junior player type level, or were you sort of the only one in your year?
No, there was, in Harrow's big school, there was some talented, sports players. There was some talented fives players who played. Some good cricketers played. So we had a group. There was a guy called Andy Hodgson who was like number one in the UK at tennis under 15 or 14, and I played with him, and he was terrifying. I mean, he was so good and so much bigger and stronger than everyone else. And very sadly, he left after 3 years. But he was a phenomenal talent, very unorthodox. He basically played tennis extremely well on the rackets court, which made it for different viewing.
We know a couple of those guys, like the Richard Owens and the Tony Moraleses, and I think to a lesser extent Mike Bailey's of the world. They can definitely be frightening.
Yeah,
to have to share the court with. Did you find as a junior player or as a younger player that you like just took to it like a fish to water, or was it a learning process? What was the learning curve like for you as you were beginning the game?
I think, like everyone, right, it's so hard. You start it, oh my God, how on earth does anyone play this game? And but I think the first time on a court I hit it once in the middle of the racket. It's like, well, that's cool. And you just go from there. And like I said, it seemed far more interesting and entertaining than squash. And it was a great little, the courts down at Harrow. There's a really nice pro room with sofas, and so we used to hang out there, and it was a great place to get to spend some time.
Very good. Sorry, my wife was yelling in the background, so if you heard that was. The thing that you're really famous for and well known for, as I'm sure you're aware, is your serve. And having watched video of you play and watched a long time ago, That's kind of what I recall. It's the very large grip, and then the big serve, and then a big big third shot. So the return of the big third shot. That style is something that I wish that I was able to play, and something I admire. Is that something that just like kind of came natural to you, or that you spent like a tremendous amount of time developing that serve and that style? Where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, I love serving. I love practicing serving. I used to put a racket on the on the wall and try and hit it when I was practicing. I remember doing that at school. And our captain of Rackets, I was in the junior colts, and our captain of Rackets peeked his head over the balcony because he didn't know who was playing, and I was doing, and I hit it first time. And it's like, wow, okay, you're quite good. It was a complete fluke. The only time I hit it in about five attempts. So yeah, I've really enjoyed serving, and so many different variants and different ways. And of course, it's such an important part of the game, right? And I wasn't very good at quite a lot of the other things, so having the serve was pretty important. And yeah, like I said, and also something you can do by yourself. You don't need another person on court. You can just work out how you can serve, what you can do, which was helpful.
Yeah. I don't want to fast forward too much, but it kind of a question, I guess, came to top of mind, having just spoken to James Stout a couple weeks ago, and part of that conversation, dealing with the lead up to your challenge. I'm aware, obviously, having spoken with him, that you guys had never played each other before the World Championship Challenge. I'm really interested to hear kind of what your mindset was like going into that match and how you prepared for it. I guess, was there anything special that you were trying to do, or anything that, it's just very unusual to have like zero experience against another person. So I'm interested to hear your side of that story, I guess.
Yeah, it was just so weird. It's probably the weirdest match I ever played because I'd never seen him play, and so and usually, for me, watching other people, I like watching rackets, but watching other people play, you can work out very easily, particularly from the gallery, kind of where they're really strong, how they move, what their strengths are with the forehand, backhand, where they stand on court to return serve, all that stuff. So you can kind of map out exactly how you think you can beat someone before you played them, right? Whether you can actually execute against that is another thing altogether. But I don't think I'd even seen him hit a racket ball, right, until that week in New York. So that was really strange, and so therefore made preparation really difficult. And so there wasn't, I didn't have much of a game plan. My game plan was to go to New York and try and watch him practice. But they were pretty smart about how they did things, and made it very hard to kind of watch and get a sense of how he played. And I'd spoken to a few people who had played him. He was clearly an exceptional squash player. So I knew he wasn't going to make any racket handling errors. He was going to move super well. Playing drop shots wasn't going to work for him, which is good because I was rubbish at hitting drop shots anyway. Yeah. So that was just, I always dreaded playing someone who I thought was slow and needed me to hit drop shots because I was terrible at it. Tom Billings, by the way, is excellent at it, isn't he? Yeah. So my game plan was to go in and just do everything that I could do as well as possible. He doesn't, as his transpired, he's a magnificent rackets player and doesn't have many weaknesses. And so, there wasn't too much to my strategy because there couldn't be, because I didn't see him play. There was no YouTube video of him playing. And so I was going in blind, which is, like I said, super unusual. I mean, I can hardly think of a player I ever played who I'd never watched before, not even once. So it was unusual in that type of match.
Did you, who was your practice partner at that time? Did you have someone like who was a single person that was sort of your go-to guy, or I know that there were multiple people in your sort of era in England that were playing at a really high level and very competitive?
Yeah, I didn't practice a huge amount with other people, actually, for a couple of reasons. One, my job was quite weird, so actually the best opportunity, and where I lived wasn't very close to Queens, so the best opportunity was to practice really early in the morning. And not very many people like to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and hit a racket ball, understandably.
Yeah.
So actually I practiced a huge amount by myself, which I was very happy with, because you can do exactly what you want, how you want. You can practice pretty much everything. And then there were a handful of really top rackets players who you could practice with, right? The Ali Robinsons, Marky Williams, I played a lot with, who I was playing doubles with, Alex TB, Guy Smith Bingham, plenty of people to have a game with. But I loved playing them in competition. Playing them on a Tuesday night just for a game, I found very hard. I was really crap midweek just to have a practice game with someone. It's like, who cares? I hit the ball, or I hit it out of court. Oh well. So so I did a lot of practice by myself, which was cool.
And so just to back up now, what year did you graduate from Harrow?
Oh, good Lord. 97. Is that right?
97. Okay. And then where did you go to university?
No, sorry, 93.
93. Okay. And you graduate university in 97. So that's actually sort of where I wanted to figure out. So in between, did you move to London, I guess, after university?
Yeah.
So in between 97, having looked in the annals of our game and looked into all the history, there was obviously that period, like maybe 3 to 5 year period where you're absolutely dominant, sort of between like 2004-5 through 2008 or so. What was going on with you between 97 and 2005 that sort of did you like level up as a player? Do you feel like you did anything differently? Was it that a couple of the really top guys got older? What was it about, I guess, the 2005 version of Harry Foster that was different from the 1999 or 2000 version?
And there wasn't the kind of sponsorship support that there is now for kind of people leaving university, which is amazing. And the game's done a brilliant job in helping people post-school and post-university kind of stay in the game. I mean, I kind of played a little bit, but really not very much. So I didn't really kind of feature. And then at some point, my memory of the days isn't that great. I played Willie Boone and in the singles of something. And it was 9-all in the first game. We were playing, it was a really good game, lots of good rallies. And I was like, wow, okay, I can actually, and he was, getting to the semi-finals, finals of the Open and the Amateur. So he was good, right? And I was like, oh, I can actually compete with him. And then I lost that game 15-9 and lost the next two, 15-1 and 15-love, I think. And we walked off court and he said, do you know what? He said, you'd actually be quite good if you were fit. And he was right. I was totally unfit. And so I was good for about 20 minutes. And then after that, it was all over. And I did I ran the London Marathon in 2000. And so that changed my fitness completely. And from there, I then began to play a bit more because I had a bit more money from work and all that sort of thing. So two things kind of helped. And then there was some sponsorship from various people in the game, which was amazing. And yeah, sort of, like I said, it didn't have much to my game other than a serve. So, it took 2 or 3 years to work out how to hit a backhand and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it took a while, but I think that running the marathon really made a massive difference in my ability to actually compete with people.
Did you keep up with the running and all that kind of stuff as time went on, or I guess the off-court training seems to be a common theme with a lot of the people that I've talked to who are sort of in your position as world champion. I know Fren, Boone, James to a slightly lesser extent, Billings, everyone. They said that off-court training was like absolutely vital for them, and when they were healthy and doing that, it was certainly allowed them to level up. Did you keep up with the same type of training as time went on with just running, or did anything change over the sort of 5 to 7 year period before?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do any running because I hate running in undying fashion. But I did a lot of gym work. I did a lot of cross trainer, a lot of step machine and stuff like that. And like all those guys, essential to playing. It's very physically demanding, and I'm particularly unathletic. So actually trying to kind of keep fitness and doing cross training really helped my ability to kind of remain relatively flexible, not nearly as flexible as everyone else, but super important. And actually just being fit, matches last 1.5, 2 hours, single long time.
Yeah. I think some of the guys who are your regular opponents in big matches like Ali and Smith Bingham, they might disagree with you on your self-assessment there of being unfit and not flexible. But that actually kind of brings me to my next question. So, having spoken to people about you and sort of that time frame when you were dominating the game, I think the challenge in the lead up to your world championship and then the actual match against Ali are things that I've heard were pretty impressive and gutsy performances from you. Can you talk a little bit about the Eliminator and the World Championship and what your experience was like with each of those matches?
Sure. So the eliminator against Guy was interesting. I mean, we had our first leg at Haileybury, which is a neutral court that I didn't get to grips with very well, to be fair. And Guy played better than I did, and it wasn't the greatest quality match, to be fair. Guy was, super talented and served well, and he was, very strong and very consistent. And so I got, beaten. But I kind of, I played Guy a few times before, right? And I, I felt that if I started well at Queens, then I had every chance. I mean, any game, I know what it's like in any game, that if you get ahead, it's tough, and one person's got confidence, the other person hasn't, and so on. And so I was I wasn't upbeat after the game because I got stuffed 4-1 in the first leg, which is never ideal in a 2 match. But I felt that I had, a chance if I played properly at Queens, because also, having a relatively good serve at Queens can be very helpful. And we went to the second leg, and I started, I just had one of those days. I started really well. I hit 3 rollers in the first 3 points, and you just, once you start, and then he hit a nice return on a 3-love up, and I killed the shot then. So I kind of got 6-love without him having a chance to do anything. And then the whole match, and it got tight at times, because it got to 10-all in the first and 10-8 in the second. And he is an unbelievably good rackets player. And I got breaks at the right time and all of that sort of stuff. And and just managed to sort of squeak it. And then you get 1-love up and 2-love up, so it makes it 4-3 in the tie. And it gets a bit nervy. But I just had one of those days. I felt pretty strong, and and managed to navigate some of the rallies. So it was nice, obviously, to come out on top. So that came through that 5-4, and then I played Ali in the World Championship. We went to Montreal for the first leg, which I imagine you've been to Montreal. I mean, it's just one of the weirdest places in the world to play rackets.
Tough, very tough court. Yeah.
It's because it's -30 outside, and it's not much warmer inside, let's be honest. And and I remember the day before the first leg, on the Friday, was, as with all these wonderful North American and Canadian clubs, lots of people came, had a few drinks, and we're just watching, we're just practicing, and the court started sweating, and there were literally puddles of water all over the floor. The ball was flying everywhere. It's like, there's no point in practicing. I mean, this is
right.
This is impossible. And then, unbelievably, for the actual match, the court didn't sweat nearly as badly, thank God. So we had a pretty long game, actually. It was pretty hard work. It wasn't, I don't think it was the greatest quality the world's ever seen. But it was pretty tight, and I think I won 4-2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a really good game at Queens that was really tight, and I managed to just squeeze, just win some key points, key times. But I thought the quality at Queens was really strong. He played well, and we had a really good game. And I just, fortunately, the advantage from the first leg helped through. Got
it. As I said before, and hearing you talk about both Ali and Guy, and looking back, like sort of on the historical data of wins and losses and whatnot, it seems like your era and the era just before and the era just after, there was a lot of like very competitive players between the 3 of you guys and a few others. Um, who would you characterize as being like your toughest singles opponent during that time frame?
Oh gosh. I mean, Ali. Ali and Guy was probably the most talented person. Guy something, um, but not as consistent as others. I thought Ali was a brilliant player, um, and incredibly strong on both flanks. Good server, very competitive.
Yeah,
All that things. And he was extremely good. Obviously, I played at the end of the James Mail era, James Mail. I
yeah,
played at the beginning of the Stout era. I mean, I wish I'd had more chance to play Jamie Stout, because I think that would have been fun for a while. And Alex Barrett obviously was kind of there or thereabouts, and he was, again, unbelievably athletic, incredibly powerful, really good server, and
yeah,
so I think the common theme of all of them is unbelievably competitive. I don't know what it is about Rackets players, but blimey, there's no quarter given by anybody for sure. So everyone made the most of the talents they had for sure.
yeah. Um, the one guy you had mentioned earlier, Marquis Williams, is your doubles partner. Was it basically just you and him as a doubles pair? Did you play with anybody else regularly as a doubles partner?
No, I just played with Mark
And
for
what
many years.
what about that partnership worked for you?
Oh, we used to have so much fun. He was just a really fun guy. I spent a lot of time with him, as you do with your doubles partner.
Yeah,
I mean, we used to practice at 6:37 in the morning before going to the office, and we'd be laughing, crying with laughter on court because just because of whatever we were just doing or talking about or laughing, or talking about. So he was brilliant to be with. He was an extremely good rackets player. And I loved our matches and the time we spent on court. It was brilliant. He was a great guy. So that's it. That's what made it fun, was spending time with a great guy who's also a good rackets player. So
got it. I'm looking back. I've got to look back at the some of the historical data here to remind myself of who the matches were. But you guys played in two World Doubles Championships together, and you won three.
And we won one.
You won one, right? So you beat. Remind me. It's hard for me to remember, and for some reason my phone doesn't want to load.
The first one we lost to Neil Smith and Mark Hubbard.
Right.
We got thrashed in New York in the first leg. We had a game point in the first game at 4-all in set 5. And we lost it, and then we lost the next 3 games really easily. And if it's so funny, small margins, right? If we won that first game, I think the whole thing would have been different. But anyway, but Mark and Neil played brilliantly that day. I mean, Neil was fantastic. His home court, he was awesome. Then we played. Then we must have played Mark and Neil again to win it back off them. So yeah, we played Mark and Neil again. We won. That's right. We won. we won. I remember serving an ace on the final point of the first game, and I remember getting it rolled on the floor, and I remember saying really loudly, "We've won a game," because it was the first game we'd won against them in New York. And I think we won the first leg 4-2, and then it got horribly tight in London.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, so it's that match was. Sorry, they beat you 5-love, and then you guys won 7-5 at New York and Queens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you play Cockcroft and Titchener Barrett. Talk to me about a young Alex Titchener Barrett, what that experience was like.
Yeah, combustible, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. Tim and Alex are pretty competitive, to say the very least. I think that's an understatement. And there are 4 of you on court. It got pretty bumpy at times. But we had a very, very close game in Montreal. Were we in Montreal? Yeah, I think we were. I think we're in Montreal. And we were 3-2 up, 8-love up or something. I mean, 10-love up, 3-2, 10-love up. And then Alex hit a fluke. I remember it, and I remember thinking, "Oh well, that's okay. We're 10-love up." in the, if we'll get back in, and we didn't. I didn't get back in at that game. Got to 3-3, we lost the last 4-3, so we lost the game to just never have lost. And then we lost the second leg. I can't remember. Did we lose 2-0? Or did, yeah, I think we.
It says it's 8. It was 8-5 total.
But we lost. Oh, okay. So we won. So we won 2 games in the second leg. Okay. Well, that shows how bad my memory is. I feel like we got beaten easier than that. But anyway. But yeah, it was close in the first leg.
We had spoken about your world championship challenge against Stout, 2008. Where did you go from there? Were you kind of like, I'm over this, I'm done, or I'm going to keep going, or what was your mentality after that match? And obviously, I guess not a few years after, you kind of more or less stopped playing. What was the sort of sequence of events after that match finished for you?
Yeah, I played a huge amount of rackets in the 5-7 years prior to that singles thing. I was, like I said, I was never the most athletic or flexible person, and it was singles was, I loved singles, but it was physically, I had spent a lot of time in the gym and all of that sort of thing. And I think I probably was, God, how old was I? You say it was 2008, so I was 33. Probably past myself by date, to be totally honest, at that point. So I played for a little, maybe another year at singles, but I kind of just lost that tiny bit of speed, and that's everything. The margins are relatively small, and I think I probably at the same time couldn't devote quite as much time to it. I was married and all that sort of stuff, and I'd moved out of London as well, which makes it hard because it's very difficult to get to Queen's Club. I live in Oxfordshire, so kind of combination of different things, and I regret it. I wish I'd stuck at it a bit longer. I probably could have played and enjoyed singles for a couple more years after than I did, but I then sort of switched and focused more on doubles, which I loved, which was awesome. So I spent my racket time doing that rather than playing singles. So that's I guess that's the sequence. But yeah, I'd love to have stuck out singles. If I'd lived in London, I think I'd have carried on singles for longer, for sure. Moving out was a big. I used to be at Queen's Club four times a week minimum, and then you live outside London, and you're probably there. It's hard to get there more than twice.
Yeah, we've moved out. I'm dealing with all these same issues that you're talking about as the 35-year-old with a family moving out of the city. I luckily work there every day, but dealing with that plus some injuries, it's never pretty. My personal singles career is basically on hold at the moment, so I'm doubles only. But I've luckily, as I think a lot of my friends in the rackets community are aware, if there's one quality that I do have as a player, it's being able to pick the right partners usually pretty well. So hoping that Mr. Stout can carry the day for us in a couple of these upcoming tournaments. For me, I actually have a lot more fun playing doubles than singles just because of the dynamic, the camaraderie, the challenge, I guess maybe focus goes in and out. Did you have a preference between the two games, singles or doubles?
I probably preferred singles because it's totally in your control, right?
Yeah.
As a player, but I probably enjoyed winning the doubles world championship more than I enjoyed winning the singles world championship. You know what I mean? So
yeah, you have somebody to share it with.
And we've been on a fair journey, as it were, and particularly having got beaten in the first time round. But I love the other thing about singles that I loved was the kind of mental part of the game, and the dynamic in doubles changes a lot.
Yeah,
and so it's a different type of mental challenge. Whereas I really like the kind of approach in singles, the kind of competitive one person nature of the game. It's obviously very different because you can never necessarily guess what anyone else is going to do.
Yeah. As far as the equipment goes, that was another question I wanted to ask. Being a big server, I assume that you guys were either using like the Nigel Gordon or the Ashford balls at the time, and that was working for you. Do you remember what you guys were using at that time?
I think it changed. It started off with the Nigel Gordon balls, and then we ended up with Peter Ashford ones. I can't remember. I mean, Howard at Queens was, spent his life balancing balls at the front and saying, "Would you like this one? Would you like?"
I know. It's very funny because watching your era of player, I like watching that style a lot more. It's a lot more exciting. It's full throttle. You're blasting the serve in. You're ripping the next shot, taking a bigger swing. The rallies are shorter, but there's more like action. And
Yeah.
you watch the game now with this newest version of the balls. I don't know if you've been watching on YouTube lately. But these foosball ones, at least in England, they get pretty hot and very bouncy, and it becomes a lot more squash-like.
Yeah, which I never liked. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I personally like to keep the point short as well. So,
Me too.
couple rapid fire questions, or a few rapid fire questions for you. As far as courts go, you mentioned Queens. Queens must be your favorite court to have played on, correct?
Yeah, I think so, because I was most familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
I guess so. I mean, it wasn't as, yes, of course, because I loved it and I played a lot on it. I mean, I thought the court at New York is terrific, really true, very nice pace. Yeah, it's a really good racket court. Chicago's a nice court. I mean, Queens was just a little bit idiosyncratic, and it suited me because there are some bad bounces along the way, which helped me.
And I guess on the flip side, what was your least favorite court to have to play on?
I didn't love Montreal, actually. Weirdly, I ended up playing quite a few of my world championships there. It's quite dark, ferociously cold, and I don't love being cold because one always played in January through February. So I love the club, I love the people, and I just struggled big time with the court. It was just cold and dark, and that's a bad combo for someone who's.
I will say, I think the members there make up for the court being difficult. In spades for sure. They're all really good guys there.
Amazing. Yeah.
What would you say? I would imagine winning the world championship must be right up there, but would you say is that your proudest and happiest achievement as a player, as a singles player?
Ooh.
Because you won 4 amateurs, 3 or 4 opens, a few amateur doubles, an invitational, or a few invitationals. I mean, you got pretty good CV.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, honestly, my favorite match on a rackets court was the semi-final of the British Open, the first time I won it, when I played Guy Smith Bingham. And I'd never won. I don't think I'd won any tournament at all. And I came up against Guy, and everyone thought he beat me for love. We had an amazing game of rackets. And I, I won it. And I remember, I just remember I felt like I hit every single shot in the middle of the racket. It's just one of those days that just everything was in the right place. And he hits the ball very cleanly, but also very traditionally. So he hits it where he should hit it, which makes it a good game because, it's very sort of traditional, authentic rackets. And I beat him, and I remember sort of walking up court thinking, okay, maybe I can do okay at this game. It's the first time I think I felt I might actually be able to compete and win a British Open and then, a US Open and do you know what I mean? So for me, that's one of my favorite moments, or probably best memories, because it was the beginning of all the fun that I went on to have, in singles and all that.
That's very interesting because I like looking at the history. I think you made it to a final in 2002. But lost, and then it took a few years for you to get back there and get it over the line.
Oh man, I lost so many finals. Dean Pennick. I I don't know if you know Dino,
I
but
know
Dean,
Dean, yes.
he's a member of Queens. He used to rib me all the time. Oh, it's another final we lost. And that's 6 in a row or 7 in a row. I think I lost 7 finals in a row. So I won the British Open, which was the first final I won. I beat Mark Hubbard in the final, having beat him in the semi-final. And then I literally think I lost 7 or 8 in a row. And I lost. I remember the one I remember most clearly was I lost to Neil in New York, 3-1, and there was some local umpiring going on that I found a bit frustrating. To be fair, but yeah, I lost. I'm literally, and it was, I think someone said to me, "Are you ever going to win a game? Why don't you just give up?" I was like, "I'm not going to give up." Pretty close here, and then I finally, I can't remember what the next one I won. I think I won the invitation, and then I went on a roll and won a few, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that period of time, it's pretty impressive. I mean, it looks like you basically won everything between like 05 and 08. You know, we've talked about Nail, Neal, Stout, a couple of the guys, you know, Robinson, Smith, Bingham. You know, I like to ask the question, and it's no disrespect to the other world champions, but I think everyone sort of always talks about the male versus Stout. Who's the best of all time? And you, I presume, played Male sort of at the tail end of his prime, and then Stout at the sort of beginning, pre-prime. What's your opinion? You're on the spot. You don't have to give a straight answer, but you got to give an answer.
It is such a good one, a difficult one, isn't it? I and also I would slightly caveat my answer because I didn't really see Jamie much after I played him twice. I didn't watch him play Alex or whoever else he beats in the World Championship. So it's a bit harder for me to kind of know or kind of imagine how good he was and how that might compare to James. It would be an unbelievable match, right? He had a better serve. I mean, the interesting thing about both of them was they were so good at the rest of it that neither of them had a particularly amazing serve, but tended to serve well like all good champions when it mattered.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, a really tight one to call. I'm gonna go with the young ones and say Jamie would have beaten him, but I mean, tough.
We will never know. Sadly, it's one of these, like, you talk about this stuff and it's one you wish you could, like, I guess, get a time machine and go back and watch something like that. You know, the other guy who we talked about is Alex Titchener-Barrett, who I think, safely speaking, is probably the best guy never to win a world championship. And he's another old Harrovian. Was there ever any thought given to playing with him as two Harrow guys as a doubles pair, or not really?
Not really. I mean, I was playing with Mark. He was playing with Tim. So it kind of never really came up. I don't think I even played with him. I don't think I ever played with him in Old Bruce, which is kind of amazing, really. And kind of weird. I don't really know how that came about. Oh, actually, I do. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you don't even play with them in your school competition. I'll put another name in the hat for the best player never to win a world championship. Guy Barker. He won doubles, but he didn't win singles.
Yep.
He was a proper expert.
Yeah, there's a video of him on YouTube. I think Cockcroft, Barker, Robinson, and Smith Bingham maybe playing doubles. I forget what year it was, but I'm pretty sure it was the World Championship. Was that match? Pretty fun one to watch, even though there's like a few minutes. Spender's got it on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've got that downloaded to watch. Anytime anyone asks what Rackets is and they want to see, that's what I show them, because it's actually like the fast pace that you like to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Very good. Well, I really appreciate the time. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. If there's anything you wanted to say or address before we parted ways, certainly I'll turn the floor over to you. And otherwise, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, Harry.
My pleasure. It's lovely to talk to someone about Rackets. It's an amazing game. I'm definitely going to be watching plenty of the years to come. I keep an eye on the YouTube. I'm very grateful. Thank you for technologies, and we don't have to go to Queens or New York to watch some of the World Championships, which is great. But yeah, what a brilliant sport. Lots of fantastic people in it. So yeah, it's a great privilege to have played it.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll see you sometime over at Queens. I'll be over there in a few weeks for the doubles. So if you have some time to watch, certainly would love to see you in person. And again, I really appreciate your time, Harry. It was nice speaking with you.
Pleasure. Really nice to speak to you too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye bye.